Donald Trump recently floated the idea of eliminating FEMA, Federal Emergency Management Agency, suggesting it might be more beneficial to overhaul or even dismantle the agency. This proposal, shocking as it may seem, raises significant concerns about its potential impact on states that are heavily affected by natural disasters, particularly those along the Gulf Coast, such as Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, and Texas. These states, many of which lean Republican, depend heavily on FEMA for disaster relief and recovery funding. Trump's suggestion, therefore, not only risks alienating a key part of his political base, but also opens the door to devastating consequences for millions of Americans. The disproportionate impact on red states. While Trump may be attempting to punish Democratic-led states like California, perhaps motivated by political grievances against leaders like Gavin Newsom, his plan could disproportionately harm Republican strongholds. States like Louisiana, where natural disasters such as hurricanes are a regular occurrence, would face catastrophic consequences without federal support. Louisiana ranks among the top 3 states most impacted by natural disasters, behind only Florida and Texas. These Gulf Coast states, almost all deeply Republican, would be left to shoulder the financial burden of disaster recovery on their own if FEMA were dismantled or significantly restructured. This is particularly concerning for states like Louisiana and Mississippi, which already struggle with limited budgets and high poverty rates. Without FEMA's assistance, these states would face a dire situation in the aftermath of hurricanes, floods, and other disasters. The notion of rearranging FEMA to make states pay for themselves would essentially leave these regions to fend for themselves, leading to devastating outcomes for their residents. The political risks of targeting FEMA. Natural disasters have a unique ability to cut through partisan lines. Unlike debates on voter ID laws or social issues, the impact of hurricanes, wildfires, and floods is immediate, tangible, and deeply personal. Communities come together in the face of disasters, and the expectation is that government leaders will do everything in their power to provide relief, regardless of political affiliation. By politicizing FEMA and disaster relief, Trump risks alienating voters across the spectrum, including his own supporters. Historically, mishandling natural disasters has had serious political consequences. For example, the Bush administration faced severe backlash for its response to Hurricane Katrina in 2005, which many viewed as inadequate and poorly managed. Similarly, the federal government's response to Hurricane Sandy in 2012 became a pivotal issue in the presidential election that year. Natural disasters have a way of highlighting government incompetence or indifference, and voters often hold leaders accountable for failures in disaster management. Trump's suggestion to dismantle FEMA not only risks alienating his base, but also exposes his administration to criticism for lacking empathy and foresight. Many Republican voters in California, Florida, and other disaster-prone states may begin to question whether their support for Trump aligns with their own best interests. As one commentator noted, California alone has more Republican voters than the entire populations of many smaller states that Trump has relied on to win elections. These voters, many of whom live in areas frequently affected by wildfires, will not take kindly to a proposal that threatens their access to federal disaster aid. The fallout in California. California, a Democratic stronghold, is often a target of Trump's ire. However, it is home to millions of Republican voters who played a crucial role in securing House seats for the GOP in the midterm elections. By targeting FEMA, Trump risks alienating these voters who rely on federal assistance to recover from disasters like wildfires and earthquakes. The political consequences of such a move could be severe, especially in swing districts that Republicans need to hold to maintain their majority in the House. California's political dynamics also underscore the broader risks of Trump's approach. While Trump may believe that punishing Democratic leaders like Gavin Newsom will energize his base, he risks creating backlash among Republican voters who feel abandoned. Many Californians, regardless of party affiliation, know someone who has been affected by wildfires or other natural disasters. The idea of losing federal support in these situations could turn even loyal Trump supporters against him. FEMA's role in disaster recovery. FEMA plays a critical role in coordinating disaster response and providing funding for recovery efforts. Its elimination or restructuring would leave states to handle disasters on their own, creating a patchwork of responses that would likely leave many residents without adequate support. While Trump's rhetoric often focuses on the idea of empowering states, the reality is that many states lack the resources and infrastructure to manage large-scale disasters independently. For example, Louisiana's recent experience with 10 inches of snow, a rare and unexpected event, highlighted the state's lack of infrastructure to handle extreme weather. Borrowing snowplows from Indiana just to clear roads demonstrates how ill-prepared states can be for disasters outside their normal range of experience. Without FEMA, states like Louisiana would be left to navigate these challenges alone, leading to longer recovery times and greater suffering for residents. The broader implications of politicizing disaster relief. Trump's proposal also opens a Pandora's box of political repercussions. If FEMA's responsibilities were devolved to the states, it could set a dangerous precedent for future administrations. Imagine a scenario where a future Democratic president uses disaster relief as a political weapon, refusing aid to conservative states unless they adopt progressive policies. Such a move would only deepen the divisions in an already polarized country. Natural disasters are not partisan events, and the federal government's response should reflect that. Voters expect their leaders to prioritize the well-being of all Americans, regardless of political affiliation. By targeting FEMA, Trump risks undermining this fundamental principle, creating a system where disaster relief becomes yet another tool for political retribution. Republican dissent and backlash. Even within Republican circles, there is likely to be significant dissent over Trump's proposal. Many Republicans in disaster-prone states understand the importance of FEMA and recognize the risks of dismantling it. For example, Jeb Bush, the former governor of Florida, took a pragmatic approach to disaster management, prioritizing the needs of affected communities over partisan considerations. This type of leadership contrasts sharply with Trump's rhetoric, which appears driven more by political grievances than by a genuine concern for disaster victims. As one commentator noted, Trump's proposal highlights his contempt for communities that did not support him politically. However, this approach risks alienating even those who did vote for him, as they begin to see the real-life consequences of his policies. The idea that disaster relief could be withheld or diminished simply because of political differences is likely to anger voters across the political spectrum. The human cost of eliminating FEMA. Beyond the political implications, Trump's proposal has significant human consequences. Natural disasters often leave communities devastated, with residents relying on federal assistance to rebuild their homes, businesses, and lives. Without FEMA, these communities would face even greater challenges, exacerbating the suffering caused by hurricanes, wildfires, floods, and other disasters. For many Americans, FEMA represents a lifeline in times of crisis. Its elimination would leave millions of people vulnerable, with no guarantee of support from state governments that may lack the resources to respond effectively. The human cost of such a policy cannot be overstated, and it is likely to provoke widespread outrage among voters. In targeting FEMA, Trump risks creating a political and humanitarian disaster. His proposal disproportionately harms Republican states, alienates voters in key swing districts, and undermines the principle of nonpartisan disaster relief. By politicizing an issue that cuts across party lines, Trump exposes himself to significant backlash from both Republicans and Democrats. Natural disasters demand competent, empathetic leadership that prioritizes the well-being of all Americans. Trump's rhetoric suggests a focus on political retribution rather than effective governance, a stance that could have devastating consequences for millions of Americans. As the debate over FEMA's future unfolds, it will be crucial to highlight the stakes for communities across the country and to hold leaders accountable for their decisions.